Dave & Buster's is your destination for fun. Eat delicious chef-crafted food. Try sizzling favorites and new creations from our talented chefs. Drink the coolest cocktail creations. Play the hottest new games to win awesome prizes. And watch all the games in the best sports bar ever. Only at Dave & Buster's.
Don't sacrifice quality of flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network. Car Crafters, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Are you sure we're supposed to be doing this?
Don't worry, I've watched him do it 1,000 times. Come on, what's the worst that can happen?
No! Bad dog!
Hi, welcome to Car Crafters. What happened?
Don't worry, we'll make it like it never happened.
Car Crafters, it's like it never happened.
The Sports Desk is proudly presented by Car Crafters. It's like it never happened.
And welcome everybody here to the Sports Desk. I'm Scott Galetti. We are joined by Ed Nunez. Steve Davis will join us later in the program. We're going to be talking a lot of stuff. Of course, it is high school football season still. Volleyball and soccer wrapping things up and getting towards selection seating show. And football already in week number 9. Hard to believe, Ed Nunez, as we bring in Ed Nunez, that it's week number 9 of the high school season.
Well, you know, we talk about this all the time, and even before the season starts. Any season starts, you and I will say, well, before you know it, we'll be talking about seeding the selection. I cannot believe it's week 9. The season has flown by so quick, and there's so many games to go, to talk about. You had a good one with El Dorado and Sandia, and you'll get into El Dorado's injuries later, I'm sure. But Scott, that's the way life goes. I look at I had a chance to meet your son the other day, and your daughter's what, 13, 14 now. I mean, I look at my son.
Time flies, huh?
Sometimes I'll say, and I tell my wife this, I'll say, honey, what happened? It's a rhetorical question because
I know it.
I'm like, is that, I always tell
Well,
her.
your son's like my oldest son. He's off on his own. He's out of college or still in graduate school and all that good stuff. And you wake up thinking, hey, where'd the time go?
I'll always tell my wife, too, I'll say, honey, there's no correlation to us getting older, right? We're not getting older. They are. So we'll laugh about that. And so that's how fast life goes on in any season the same way, Scott.
Right, absolutely. Well, what stood out to you this past week? We'll get into the Lobo game here momentarily, but what stood out high school-wise and anything else-wise?
Well, I think one of the teams I want to mention, we'll talk about this, is the Cleveland Storm. Since losing in La Cueva, they've been on a roll. They beat Volcano Vista this week, and they took that loss very, very personally. I mean, they got beat by La Cueva like they have not been beaten in many years. And I think the way they've responded with 5 straight wins, and they beat Volcano Vista big, and it's almost like I said that they
and Rio Rancho the week before.
Right. So you had that game with former Sandia head coach Jim Ottman, and just the way they've responded, it's almost as if Coach Ridenauer, who does a great job out there, and I always say, why wouldn't you want to play at Cleveland? Again, there's some great schools out there. I mean, you got this field on campus, Lightning Bolt Stadium, the Cannon, Gary Chavez, the PA. I mean, they've got 3 sets of uniforms, 50 coaches, and I'm kidding there, but Coach Ridenauer, what was the message after the loss of La Cueva? I always kind of like to know what motivates people, because they've been waxing people, man. Like, they've really been very upset. Like, we lost, but the response to me was 5 wins in a row, and I mean impressive wins. So was that an aberration against La Cueva, or was I want to know. And right now, the Storm's response would tell you that they're playing some of the best football in 6A.
I don't know if it was an aberration because watching that game on TV, La Cueva was that good. Their defense set the tone with some hard hits, and they knocked some of the players for Cleveland out of that game. I think you got to give La Cueva credit for that. But I think at the same time, like you talked about Coach Ridenour, I think that Cleveland has learned what they did wrong, what their deficiencies were, and they've worked on those. And you're seeing a stronger, more physical team, much like we thought they were going to be.
They're always physical at the line of scrimmage anyway.
Right.
They always were. So I think that's a game against.
But they were beaten up at the line of scrimmage against La Cueva.
They sure were.
Unlike any other time that I've ever seen Cleveland play.
So the offensive line and defensive line coaches really went back to work, and they made sure who was, again, who's dominated the last 5 games at the line of scrimmage. They've always dominated, always.
Right.
Even when they lose, they lost last year in the playoffs. But you mentioned Derek Lloyd and Ryan McClain of La Cueva really put some hits on Cleveland. And
there was one hit that I forget who Derek Lloyd hit, but you said
he almost killed that kid.
Almost killed him, almost knocked his head off.
Neto or Torres, but so
it was an NFL type hit. Let's put it that way.
Well,
it was unreal.
Fresno State hitting the Lobos the way they did on Saturday night. We'll get to that in a minute because they put some hits on as well. But I think since then, when you lose and you're used to winning, it's a culture of winning out there. It is.
Right.
Roger Holian and I talked about that. You don't expect to lose. And then when you lose, people are like, oh, man, maybe you're not that good. So you hear it from the community, the coaches.
Right.
Man, they've responded in a big way. So I've been impressed with the Storm 5-game winning streak.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Storm are on a 5-game winning streak and getting better and better. And how about Manzano? They go to Clovis, win a big game?
You know what? Jordan Bird didn't say in the paper whether he played or didn't. I'm gathering that he didn't. You know, he's still under concussion protocol from the La Cueva game because I didn't hear anything or read anything about him at all. So they went over there, and Clovis, under first-year coach Cal Fullerton, has had some close games and been in games,
right?
But they just haven't been able to beat the big giants of that district. So another big win for the Monarchs. They've got a big game against El Dorado this Thursday.
So now let's go to what we were talking about that we were going to talk about. That's the Lobo game. Was it a game? That's the biggest question. It was a surprise, that's for sure, because everyone and their brother had the Lobos as favorites. In fact, I think the line started as Fresno State maybe a point and a half. Then by Saturday, it was in some publications, it was up to 3 points for the Lobos being a favorite. 38-0. And the thing, you know, we can spin stats however we want, but the telling stats in this game, Darrell Chestnut, 5 carries, 29 yards. Tyrone Owens, 10 carries, 29 yards. Longest run, 8. Chestnut, longest run, 14. The telling one, well, McQuarley, 5 carries, 20 yards. And the telling one, Lamar Jordan, 4 carries, 4 yards. But when you take the losses, he had 4 carries, 0 yards. That's one of your leading rushers, and that's your quarterback who normally leads the option attack.
Well, here's the thing, and you mentioned, I think Richard McQuarley had busted runs against the Air Force of 65 and 73. We had talked about the explosive plays that offense had been lacking. All of a sudden, they found their groove against Air Force, and they went into a bye, feeling pretty good about themselves.
Right.
And McQuarley and Jordan, you know, I'm going to say this, and Lamar Jordan, when things go wrong, he wears his emotions on his sleeves. And there's a couple of times that he didn't turn it upfield. He ran out of bounds. And maybe he's still feeling the effects of that hit against Boise State. I don't know. But I'm going to tell you this, that I think going forward, and we'll talk about that later, you're right, it's a running option team. They're not going to come in and pass 50 times and win. But I think Fresno State controlled the edge. And plus, when they did get some open field running, not much, they came with some hits that made the Lobo runners kind of shy about getting hit, and then they turned the ball over.
I've heard the word intimidated, which I didn't think that this Lobo team would be intimidated because they've got the physical talent now that they didn't have when Bob Davies started here. They got the bigger players. So intimidated didn't seem like a word that would come out of anyone's mouth about the Lobos.
Remember one thing, when Rocky Long left, you know, they're minus, 18 scholarships? They got those back, you're right. They've got bigger players, you know, so they're stronger. But they got taken. Let's face it. Buddy Ryan used to say this. The coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to take them to the woodshed. The Lobos got taken to the woodshed. And there's no other way to look at it. And my son and I talked about it. You know, he was in Durango and he called me at halftime. And I'm like, son, I don't know. I don't have a feel that they're going to come back because when Jason Sanders missed the field goal. You know, he usually makes those, so that there just wasn't a feel.
See, that's the other
back.
thing. He missed a field goal first he missed a field goal, but he missed one that he normally makes. So that was telling too, because I was shocked when I didn't see the game live. I heard about it, and then I watched it on tape, and it was amazing.
I think, you know what, again, just everything that could go wrong, Murphy's Law, but you know what? Give the Bulldogs credit. They beat the Lobos in it. You have it right there.
This is a one-win team a year ago, the Bulldogs of Fresno State. And the thing is, when I was getting calls and texts from people who were watching the game and telling me, I thought that Fresno State had about 10 sacks. They had 2 sacks. They had 5 tackles for loss. But they had a lot of pressures. I mean, the quarterbacks were running all over the place. And when you look at Lamar Jordan, 2 of 6 for 13 yards passing, a long of 7. Tavaka Tuioti, 13 of 24 for 200 yards, 1 INT, a long of 44. Now, what that tells me, and it kind of coincides with the paper story today being Tuesday, the show airs on Wednesday, Bob Davie talking about, well, we're going to go back to what we do. Well, what we do is the triple option for UNM. Now, what the Lobos also do with the triple option is they take control of the clock, like the Tulsa game.
That's right.
You can't go toe-to-toe. See, the bottom line with Bob Davie, I think, is saying is we can't go toe-to-toe with these physical teams. We got to control the clock. 42 minutes to 18, that's a lot of time on the clock, keeping your defense off. That's what happened at Tulsa. Now, the other day, that didn't happen. Even though the Lobos still had the ball, I believe, more time of possession than Fresno, Fresno cashed in on big plays. But the thing is, this isn't a passing team. You can't, everyone's saying, oh, Tuioti needs to start. We need a new quarterback. It's got to be a pass. They're not built for the pass. No. They're an option team that passes on occasion.
You know what?
And that's, I think, what Bob Davie is saying. Hey, we got to go to what made us successful, and that's the option.
Well, we know better. I know we got to go to a break. I just want to get this in real quick. I agree with you. Tuioti's the passing quarterback. But I'm just saying, if Lamar Jordan continues to have the same body language when they're down, he's their leader.
Right.
Pick it up. That's all I'm saying.
I know. No, that's absolutely correct. We will take a break. We'll talk more about this. We'll talk more about the high school scene. But first, the Dreamstyle Top 10 Plays of the Week.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walking to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Folks, there's no other way but to be all in. Either he's Lord of all or he is not Lord at all. And you can experience the real and authentic, true life change that only God can provide to humanity. See, when we truly encounter Jesus and purpose to know him and follow his teachings, hashtag life change will occur.
Duke City Sports Bar, proud supporter of Proview Sports and New Mexico Youth Athletics. Catch all the sports action from high school, college, pros, and MMA on one of our 35 HD TVs. Start your night off right with any selection from our delicious menu prepared with fresh, never frozen ingredients. Duke City Sports Bar, Albuquerque's newest sports bar. Located on Eubank and Montgomery, dial 505-433-4020.
And we are back here on the Sports Desk. I'm Scott Galetti along with Ed Nunez. Steve Davis will join us here later on in the program. Jason Pohl is directing the program here today. Our thanks to Jay Pohl, always doing a great job. we'll give him a thumbs up. So Jason Pohl is here on the show. And Ed, we'll put a wrap on the Lobo talk. We have to, because in just a few days, they're playing a early game, well, late at night, but they have a short week. They're playing Colorado State Friday night at 8:30.
Sure, yeah, you mentioned the short week. One thing that Coach Davey said last year, and I remember, Colorado State's bigger, they're stronger, they have better. He said that last year. So I don't know that a year will make that much of a difference. It doesn't lead into, he's being honest. So we'll see what happens. I'm always going to root for my Lobos. That's a late start. So I heard Mike Burke, your producer, yesterday saying the crowd, he said maybe 20. I'm thinking more like 15 to 17. That's what I'm thinking. So because it's a late game, and notoriously Albuquerque fans don't go out late to a football game. And one thing Bob Brown, your other comrade over there at 1017, said, if it's a football town, it's a football town. They don't care when the game is. Right. So you have to look at it like that maybe we're not a football town. That doesn't mean I'm not going to support. I'll watch. That's my squad. But it's going to be a tough matchup. Yeah. My son was mentioning Colorado State spreads you out. They can score on you many different ways. It certainly doesn't bode well for the Lobo defense. And I think one of the things that you said, if the Lobos aren't controlling the time of possession on the offensive end, man, it's going to be hard.
It's going to be really hard. And, excuse me, there you're looking at the standings. Colorado State 5-2. They're 3-0 in the Mountain Division. Boise State 2-0, 4-2. Wyoming 2-0, 4-2. Then you got the Lobos 1-2 and 3-3. And the Lobos just a couple of weeks ago had aspirations of winning a Mountain Division, and now the talk is, are they going to get enough wins to be bowl eligible?
Gosh, Scott, you know what? When and I said
that's hard to fathom, actually.
No, it is, because you and I talked about this, and I said this, and you did too. I said, look, halfway home to a bowl, 6 wins. And so if you look what's coming up, Colorado State and I believe Wyoming, so it doesn't get any easier. And instead of us, or the Lobos anyway, thinking they're going to be 9-4 or 8-5, and get in a bowl easily, or maybe we can talk about another bowl. It's looking like at the end of the season, maybe we'll skate in. Again, the Gildan New Mexico Bowl, Jeff Symbieta does a great job. We'd love to see him back. If they even want him, we don't know. But to get to a bowl game for 3 successive years for a football program that's always kind of under siege, and they're starved for wins as it is anyway.
No, you're right.
So it's still a victory if they get there. But I'm telling you, the way you talked about it and the way Saturday's game went, what changes in a short week? How do you game plan for a team that and you said is probably better than you? So what do you do?
Last thing on this, and it might go on for a couple of minutes here, is you know, it's got to be revisited. What we talked about on the radio show yesterday is the fact that this is a team that was on a 2-game winning streak with a bye week. And the talk was, oh, they came out flat, they came out disinterested. If the bye week comes and you're on a 2-game winning streak, usually that's when a team gets fired up and does even better the next game because they get recharged, not regressing. Mike brought it up yesterday, and I thought it was a good point, the fact that all the stuff that was going with the kneeling and this and that, you know, not so much of a distraction, but he said, and I thought it was an interesting question, he asked, well, could it be that there's a divide within the locker room on this issue? And I never thought of that. I thought it was just more like, oh, it happened, everyone's dogging them, and, you know, it's a distraction. But he brought up that spin, and I thought, you know what, that might, I'm not in the locker room, I don't know, but that could be a distraction.
It's a fair enough point. We don't know, but I think we'll find out the way they play. Were they disinterested? Did they play as hard as, you know, we've seen them play? We don't know. One thing's for sure, they got it taken, you know, they got taken to the woodshed and they got beat pretty badly. So I think that's something we don't know. It's not in the paper. It hasn't come out. But I think going forward, we'll have to keep an eye on that as fans, the media, whoever else follows local football. And I follow every game. Every game. I've never not followed one. I mean, I'm Lobo mad just like Mike is, man. I wear my, you know, cherry and silver on my sleeve. They'll always be my team no matter what.
Let's look at last week's results here, as it was week number 8. Hard to believe. And there you saw Los Lunas over St. Pius, 54-33. Rio Rancho beating Volcano Vista. Closer game than the score indicates. Robertson, not so close, 60-7. It was Atrisco, and a big win over West Mesa in District 4. Cleveland beat Cibola 63-33.
I think I was wrong about Cleveland. I thought they beat Volcano Vista with Cibola 63 points. They hung 63 on them. The game that I wanted to comment on is James Yotis had predicted an upset with Pius beating Los Lunas, and Nick Garland. What kind of game did Nick Garland have? Oh my goodness,
He's
rushed
been doing
for
that every week,
200 yards.
And it's unbelievable.
Yes,
He's so talented.
They said the question with him, and that's what said in the paper, was his passing, but he passed in 4 touchdown passes along to go with over 200 yards rushing. So Nick Garland, and remember, Omari Samuels is in Michigan, so that makes his performance even more impressive.
It sure does. Let's look at some of the other games. Last Friday, you had El Dorado over Sandia, 49-30. Manzano, big win on the road at Clovis. It was Grants over Valencia. West Las Vegas continues to rule.
Well, it's a Richard Tripp West Las Vegas Dons. You know, we always call them that. And if you look at it, look at Centennial and Mayfield in a free fall. We've never hardly seen that from Bradley, you know, Coach Jim Bradley, now his son Michael Bradley. And, you know, Coach Bradley told Roger Holian and I earlier in the year that enrollment's down. They don't have the numbers. We've never seen a Mayfield team. They're decimated by some injuries as well, but we've never seen a Mayfield Trojans team perform like that in very many years.
Saturday action last week in week number 8. Los Alamos over Academy. Capital beat Del Norte 18-13. And it was St. Mike's over Pewaukee.
That was a big win. You know, St. Mike's and Pewaukee, that was a big game. And St. Mike's, the Horsemen, coming away with a big win there, as well as the Jaguars, the Capital.
Let's look at some of the highlights of last week. The first one that we have is West Mesa and Atrisco. And you got those great uniforms from Atrisco Heritage. I think there's numbers there somewhere.
Gosh.
That's a segment on a show one of these days is, you know, the big talk. You don't see the colleges doing this except for Oregon, but even Oregon has readable uniforms and they're big.
Every time I see those numbers, and Sebastian Noel and Yvonne Sanchez had that call, but those numbers are a nightmare. They really are.
Yeah, I mean, and then you got the white on white at Rio Rancho. They look great, but they are hard to identify even if you're standing right in front of the players. But this was a big win. West Mesa was leading at one point, and then it was Atrisco coming back and gaining the victory.
Well, it's a game that I thought West Mesa head coach Ron McMath really needed to win if they wanted to make a state playoff berth. And Angel Ramirez, you know, was dynamite on defense and offense. He intercepted a pass and returned it, and also ran in for a touchdown. There it is right there.
Yeah, he forced the quarterback to do a spin there, and the quarterback didn't see the coverage, and that was all she wrote on that play.
Well, you know, it's okay. So Atrisco again, they're another team. They can beat the West Mesas, but they can't, they struggle against Volcano Vistas, the Clevelands, and the Rio Ranchos.
No, that's a great point. You see the defense. The defense against teams like West Mesa, just very physical. And even against teams like Rio Rancho, they're physical. They just don't have the horses that teams like Rio Rancho and Cleveland do.
I like some of the running backs that West Mesa had. I like their quarterback, and Mark Garcia is a good running back. They had some Bolden, the receiver. They've got skilled players too, but for whatever reason, the Mustangs have had a hard time just climbing that last little hill. They get there, then boom, right there mid-season, they're knocked back down. Let's see how they recover from that loss to Atrisco Heritage.
By the way, I got to add, the reason why I bring up the numbers is because what are numbers for? Identification. Right. When an 8 looks like when a 9 looks like a 6 and an 8, Cleveland, even on a close-up, it is hard to read the numbers.
Almost impossible.
So let's go now to El Dorado and Sandia. El Dorado Sandia, outstanding game, and I'll tell you what, Gabe Smith, look at some of the passes he throws, and Colin Bars showed off a little speed right here.
You know what? Tall, rangy receiver catches those slants from Gabe Smith, and very hard to bring down.
But I didn't know that he had those afterburners until he made that play, and I told Steve Davis that, and Richard Gallegos on the run there for the touchdown. And it was 14-0, but Silva goes to Deontay Bernard. Bernard does what he does best. He can get open.
At one point, you had a running clock here, and then Sandia came back and scored some touchdowns.
Yeah, they scored a couple. Gallegos, he's tough when he gets to the outside, and he just had the radar on the end zone right there.
Okay, between him and Resma Troy, I think they have a good stable of running backs.
Well, Resma Troy's getting healthier, too, because I think he had some health issues earlier, and he had a big game, too. But Gallegos, he's a touchdown machine.
You know what I like about him? He gets the inside tough yards. Very tough runner.
He gets all the tough yards. And speaking of tough yards, this was DJ Hayden getting to the house and refusing to go down. And at this point, it was 28-14.
And you know what? Sandia still hung in there till almost the end, but El Dorado was just too much. Too much skill, too much Gabe Smith, who I think is one of the best quarterbacks.
Big interception, and you don't see it, but Steve Davis throwing up a good screen here. So
yeah. But you got a good memory there, though. You can remember who intercepted that.
Yeah, that was an outstanding play there, as that was. I believe Hertrich. And look, just quick over the middle, and this was Hertrich. For one of his 2 touchdowns. And by the way, Grayson Hertrich, Steve and I were marveling about this. Talk about a touchdown machine. 3 catches on the year and 3 touchdowns.
He's also a defensive end, I believe.
Yes.
So, yes.
Well, he's got picks, too, but he has 3 catches on the year, 2 in this game, and all 3 are touchdowns.
All he does is score touchdowns.
Yeah, well, speaking of which, that was another big-time score there. It looked like it was fumbled, but they called it in the end zone, and that was outstanding play, and there you go. You were talking about the running clock, and there's DJ Hayden getting back at the end zone, and you throw towards him. If it's near him, he's going to make the catch.
Oh yeah, no question.
I'm very impressed with DJ Hayden. He's got talent. He's got the hands, and he's got great speed. But the unfortunate part is this team isn't so much built for the pass. They're kind of like the Lobos. They're built for the run.
No, they always have been. They'll pop a pass in here now and then, but you're right. The running game is their bread and butter.
So there you saw the highlights there from El Dorado and Sandia. Final thoughts before we let you go, I guess, Ed.
Well, you know what? Again, just looking forward to some great football this week. I've got the honor of having Manzano El Dorado on Thursday, and that's going to be a heck of a game. So
that will be a heck of a game,
I'm really looking forward to it.
I'll tell you what, watch out for number 11.
Yes, sir. That's going to be one heck of a game.
Number 11 over the middle, that's their play, and that's what they try to exploit.
Well, if you look at it, they've got that, and they've got so many other things. They've got a lot of weapons.
Yeah,
Both
they got
teams
number
do.
7 also. But.
Right. Yeah, I think he might. I don't know if he had an ACL injury or not. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see on that. So we will take a break. We'll come back with Steve Davis here on the Sports Desk.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walking to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number 1. Cover it with green stuff, 1 scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
When I train for American Ninja Warrior, I schedule regular workouts to stay in shape.
To keep my car in Ninja Tough shape, I head to a Napa Auto Care Center for regular maintenance and genuine Napa auto parts.
Like brakes and batteries.
I trust my Napa Auto Care Center for quality parts and quality service.
And with the 24-month, 24,000-mile nationwide warranty, I drive away with peace of mind every time.
Visit AutoCareNM.com to find a location near you.
Looking for some exhilarating fun? It's at All Out Zone. All Out Zone showcases Nerf dart tag games from team elimination battles to human versus zombies, pitting two teams against each other in fun, organized chaos with trained referees, music, and a full arsenal of Nerf blasters. You need team parties, birthday parties. We can customize the party to fit your needs. Visit us at the Coronado Mall. Give us a call, 505-444-6964. All Out Zone.
And we are back here on the Sports Desk. I'm Scott Galetti. Our thanks to Ed Nunez. And now joining us is the president of Proview Network, Steve Davis. And Steve, obviously this is your show also. Your thoughts on what was week number 8 in the high school football season?
Well, I see teams separating. I guess that's what, you're looking at the top teams that Manzano goes down to Clovis. And fought with them the first half. Great, which we said was going to be a close game. You and I talked about it. We talked about it during the, the El Dorado game, El Dorado Sandia game. But they went down, and then they came through. We have Chad Adcox on the Steve Davis show tomorrow, and we get to talk to him about the trip and the whole thing. But also, surprisingly, I think, Rio Rancho and Volcano Vista, I mean, we're seeing, who's for real. And,
right.
We can't forget about Las Cruces, they just seem to get better every week. So it looks like, when it's funny, at the beginning of the year, we were talking about top 8 teams.
Right.
Deal. Now it's getting down to that Manzano staying healthy is going to be the team that they're going to beat, and then it's going to be between La Cueva and Cleveland and basically Rio Rancho and Las Cruces.
No, that's a very good point.
So there's top 5. There's 5 teams that really right now they could win the state championship. Whereas and that could change again with injuries and everything like that. But I'm just saying, if you look at scores, if you use all those type things, it looks like the top 5 teams are separating themselves.
Let's take a look at the coaches' polls in the high school football scene. You look at 3A. Once again, we talk about this every week, Steve. Eunice at the top, Capitan, Santa Rosa, Dexter, and Estancia. And this is one of those divisions also where there was a move here, 5 to 6, 7 to 8, and it's almost like the coaches are starting to get to that point of the year where they're maneuvering for matchups.
Well, I start looking at this right now, and we start looking. It's selection of the seating show in 3 weeks.
That's what I'm saying.
But if Eunice wins, I think that it'll be the first time that Proview Networks is going to be going down to Eunice. Okay,
that would be cool.
It's been to Capitan and Santa Rosa, and I don't think we've been to Dexter. So that's exciting to me to see what might happen there. And if it's at Eunice, and we'll see if Rio Rancho athletic director will go down there with us. So.
Let's go with 4A now. And in 4A, you got Robertson, St. Mike's, Moriarty, Portales, and Ruidoso. Robertson still at 7-0 and a very tough team.
Well, they are, and they just keep winning. I guess and it's almost something they've done in the last 3 years. So it's nothing unexpected, and it'd be interesting between those 4 teams who's going to be in the finals. And we went to Portales last year, and we haven't been to Moriarty. That's something I'm kind of looking forward to see how this all plays out.
Let's go now to 5A, and in 5A, Artesia 5-2, and you and I have talked about this, Steve. The 2 losses to 6A teams, and you got Belen, Roswell, Los Lunas, Miyamura. Miyamura at 7-0, Belen at 7-0. But the realistic question: can anybody in 5A beat Artesia when Artesia's on their game?
Well, the question is yes, and we saw it Los Lunas. Los Lunas had them on the ropes and lost in the last 2 minutes.
Well, Artesia people will tell you they weren't on their game that day.
Well, of course they're not going to be on the game that day, okay? I mean, and guess what? Maybe Los Lunas wasn't on their game either, okay?
Right. So, no, that's true.
But you know what? They won on the road. That does mean a lot. But to answer your question, you know, hey, last year we thought Artesia was going to go all the way, and
we did.
And Pius comes up and beats them. So to answer you asked that question.
In fact, I ate crow on that last game because I thought that Artesia was going to win by at least 14 to 21 points, even as good as St. Pius was. And you know, I was wrong for sure last year. St. Pius ended up winning the trophy for San Juan.
I mean, those 4 teams right there, and I haven't seen Nehemiah and what they are, but you know. Belen, Roswell, and Artesia has to play Roswell, and I think they play at the Wool Bowl. I think they play this week.
Right. Well, here's the thing. Coaches have seen Miyamura, and I'll tell you what, they dropped in the poll this week, and they're undefeated.
Well, that's what's going to happen.
They dropped in the poll. They're undefeated. So that'll tell you something. 6A, one team that didn't drop in the poll. That's Manzano. La Cueva is number 2, Cleveland number 3, Las Cruces hanging around at number 4, and then you got Rio Rancho. Even though they have 2 losses, very dangerous team.
And this this poll here is very crucial in the 2 and 3 spot. There's already talk that La Cueva deserves that number 2 seeds, but I believe Cleveland is ahead in the Max Preps polls and with all the 6 criteria, Cleveland is the number 2 team.
Yeah, well, with all the criteria they are, and Cleveland's schedule's been
even though La Cueva beat them handily,
right,
the 2nd or 3rd game of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's look now at some of the standings here. We'll go to 4A District 1, and you got Shiprock 5-2. This is the first week of district play.
Well, these next 2 weeks we find out who's for real. They're going to be playing their district opponents and find out really what's going to happen with them.
Let's go to District 2 now in 4A, and this is the fun one. We always talk about this being a fun district. You got one 7-0 team, one 5-2 team, actually 2 5-2 teams, and a 6-1 team. 3 teams are 3-0, and Bernalillo has been competitive this year, even though they're 2-6.
Well, what stands out more to me is that there's 3 teams that are 3-0 in the district. The one loss. There's nobody. The top 3 teams haven't lost a game in district. So these next 3 weeks are going to find out who's going to separate from each other.
Yeah, you look at the 2 top teams, and they're going to play down the road. If they end up being undefeated, Robertson and West Las Vegas, they might have to move that game to Dreamstyle Stadium. There's going to be so many people.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
I mean, the whole town of
you know what? And I'm going to say this in a good way. They better believe in a lot of security too. Okay, because I say that in a positive, positive way, not where it's negative or anything. But it's going to be one of those games that. A lot of trash talking is going to be going from a lot of trash.
So that is a big time inner city battle, and talking with Richard Tripp, he loves when those teams get together. Sometimes he'll get a little tenser than others, but he loves just the.
Especially if he wins. He
loves when he wins.
I think when he loses, it's.
He'll be wearing that green right away if he wins. Right. So yeah, that. Let's go now to 4A District 3, and you got Socorro at 2-0, Hatch Valley, Silver, Hot Springs, and Cobre. rounding out the pack there, but Socorro is 2-0 and they're 4-4. And that's the thing, some of these districts, you have teams that are at 500, maybe a game over, or maybe a game below.
I have no real comment because we don't see them. Okay?
No, I know.
So I can't, and that's misfortune. But
I guess the reason why I'm bringing that up, Steve, because I'm not trying to put you on the spot, is quite simply some of these teams, you look at a 4-4 team and you might put them up against an undefeated team, and who knows if Socorro ends up being the better team, even though they're 4-4.
Well, that's the whole point. You look at their 2-0. That means that they're on a winning streak. You know, and all those teams right now are, you know, Hatch and Silver are on winning streaks, and we know is the gaps close between good teams at the end of the year because all the teams get better, and the kids are more focused.
Let's look at District 4 in 4A now, and you see Ruidoso. That's a team that's getting hot. They're 6-2, but they're 2-0 in district. Portales, that's my team to beat in this district, obviously, as they're 6-1, 1-0 in district. And then you got Moriarty. They're also at 6-1 and 1-0.
You know, the thing about this district is the travel between the teams. You know, whoever comes out of this district is well traveled.
Yeah.
And they have mental toughness.
You mentioned that while we were doing the broadcast and we showed the standings last week during the Sandia El Dorado game. That's a great point. They're Ruidoso to here. That's a long drive for Hope Christian. Nimi, you got Portales, you got Moriarty, you got teams that are a long distance from one another.
Well,
so it's fun, but it's difficult.
You think about it, Moriarty is the hub of the whole district. if you really think about it.
That is true. Because everyone has to go through Moriarty to get here, so that is very, very true. Let's look now at the next district, and we're looking at 5A District 1. And in 5A District 1, you got Miyamura, and nobody really knows what to expect about this team. They went and won against St. Pius, and that usually is a litmus test for this team. If they're able to beat St. Pius, that usually makes their schedule. So far, they're 7-0, and they're 2-0 in district, but as you see, there's some tough teams in this district.
And there's some also... You know, back to the travel, and then I look at those things, and there's some distance between, you know, basically, you know, Gallup and Farmington, and basically that's the whole area. So,
let's go now to District 2, and in District 2, you got Capital. See, here's a good example, Steve. You got the team at 1-0, at 3-4, and who's to say that this isn't the best team in this district?
That's a great point.
Because Capital's usually very strong in football.
And Academy won last week, and so I'm looking at this. This district is very interesting because of Capital Del Norte and Los Alamos, and they're all right there to see who gets in. These teams are fighting to see who's going to get in.
District 3 now in 5A, and you've got Chaparral at 5-2. And you got Santa Teresa at 4-3. That district, of course, with 4 teams starting up this week.
And we talked about it, you know, last week. Is look at that. Alamogordo is basically hasn't won a game. I mean, that's what is mind-boggling about this district and about Alamogordo.
So now you look at District 4 in 5A, and it's Artesia 5-2, Roswell 5-2, Lovington 4-3, Goddard 4-3. And I've talked with you, I've talked with Ed about this, Steve. This is a district that realistically anybody can win, even though Artesia's on top. There's such rivalries in this district that when you get a rivalry game, records go out of the window, and that's why teams like Goddard can beat Artesia.
Well, I'm going to go one step further with that, Scott, is the home teams.
Yes.
So who's
home teams do matter
in this district is, you know, Artesia playing at Roswell. I don't know. I haven't looked at the schedule, but who wants to go to Lovington and play on a Friday night?
Right.
I mean, that town is going to be sold out, and vice versa with Artesia.
Well, you got Roswell, you got Goddard, both in the same city, and that packs up every week too.
That's a good point too.
And then you're looking at the fans there in Artesia. you know, the picture tells 1,000 words.
Well, I tell you what, you better buy your tickets right now, all right? So, or you messed up, you better buy them for next year.
Exactly. Let's go to District 5 and 5A, and this is also a fun one as you got Los Lunas 2-0, Berlin 1-0. They finished the season against one another on that, I believe it's a Saturday, and then you got Grants at 1-1, St. Pius 0-1. I still think that St. Pius is going to be a player in this district, but I got to believe it's going to come down to Los Lunas and Berlin. Which team gets the upper hand on one another?
Well, it really makes a great showdown for Proview Networks, and nothing against St. Pius, because St. Pius has been really great to Proview, but you know that that game is going to be at noon or 1 o'clock, and that town's going to be filled up, and Buffalo Wild Wings is going to be happy because everybody's going to be in town that day. So, and it's going to be one of those days that we're doing some either volleyball or soccer championships. So it's going to be one of those days. It's going to be the key game of the week. It
will definitely be a fun game, and Proview Networks will be there. Well, Steve, in closing, anything that you'd like to say? I know you got to head out of here.
I got to head out, but I just saying, tell people. I mean, this is football season is neat. There's 5 teams now. I've cut it down to 5, which means nothing. But and I hope I offend and El Dorado's playing Manzano this week.
At least you haven't cut it down to 2 yet.
Yeah, I haven't cut it down. I still think that Manzano is the team to beat for what they did down to Clovis, because I know that they weren't healthy and they came through, and Clovis is still going to make a difference in the coming weeks with La Cueva, and that's going to be a great matchup. I'm looking forward to the La Cueva Clovis game, the last game of the season.
That should be a fun one as well. He's Steve Davis. We'll take a break here. One more segment coming up on the Sports Desk.
Hoops NM Basketball Center is coming soon. 10 full courts broken into 2 wings for ultimate basketball and volleyball play. Locker rooms, a lounge area, a pro shop, and a full snack bar will all be a part of a great experience. Convenient parking and access will make the Hoops NM Basketball Center a premier facility for league play and competitive regional tournaments. With over 9,000 square feet, Hoops NM Basketball Center will take court sports play to another level in our community. Courts are regulation high school size with wood floors and seating for approximately 350 per court. Major sponsors and supporters are being assembled now. If you're interested, contact Dan Serrano at 505-249-7994. Send him an email, hoopsnm@aol.com. That's hoopsnm@aol.com. Hoops NM Basketball Center, a premier sports facility serving our community. VR Junkies is a virtual reality arcade. We specialize in all things VR, from the simple phone-based headsets to cutting-edge full-body motion systems. Check us out at the Coronado Mall. VR Junkies.
Carmody Medical provides solutions for your everyday needs. Hot and cold compression wraps provide therapeutic compression for the shoulder, hip, and knee. The therapy wraps are constructed of an insulated outer fabric and a ventilated cotton pocket to protect the body. Elastic belts allow mobility and deliver a gentle, adjustable compression. The reusable therapy packs can be removed from the pouch and placed into the freezer. Contact Jim for more information.
Hey everyone, Adam Deal here with Proview Networks. Extreme Clean is a proud sponsor and supporter of Proview Networks and all high school sports athletics. Owner Mike McLean and Extreme Clean specialize in carpet cleaning for apartment, realty, business, and residential clients. With over 20 years experience, attention to detail and quality customer service matters. For more information, give them a call, 505-221-6440, Extreme Clean.
Car Crafters, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Are you sure we're supposed to be doing this?
Don't worry, I've watched him do it 1,000 times. Come on, what's the worst that can happen?
No! Bad dog!
Hi, welcome to Car Crafters. What happened?
Don't worry, we'll make it like it never happened.
Car Crafters, it's like it never happened.
And we are back here on the Sports Desk. I'm Scott Galetti. Steve Davis had to roll. Ed Nunez had to roll. We bring in the A-team now, and that is Jason Pohl. And there you got Alden Iowani. Alden, our normal director here. Jason doing a great job. Brings up old schools, Jason, as you were the director here for a long time for the Sports Desk.
Yeah, it's nice to be back, but Alden's doing a good job. He's killing it.
Yeah. In other words, you'll do it today, but you're getting the heck out of here, right?
Yeah, no, Alden, this is Alden's show. Alden does a great job.
Yeah, you're busy enough doing what you do. We left off at 6A. We're going to go to the standings in District 1 and 6A, and you got Cleveland at 7-1. Piedra Vista hanging around at 1-0 and 4-3. Rio Rancho 1-1 and 6-2. And I'll bring this up to you, Jason, because you've seen a lot of football. Both you and Alden have seen a good share, as Josh in the background has also seen a good share of Rio Rancho, Cleveland, and Volcano Vista and Cibola. I think right now, especially after they beat Rio Rancho, this is Cleveland's district to win and Cleveland's district to lose. I don't see anyone topping them right now.
Yeah, they're peaking at the right time, and Alden lately this year I feel like has been hyped up on PV lately, but but Cleveland right now, Angelo Trujillo, I feel like he's got his legs back, and his speed I notice is a lot sharper and faster. But we'll see when it comes down to playoff time, things change.
And speaking of coming up on playoff time, we look at District 2 now, and this is a fun one. Manzano leading at 8-0. They have 2 more games to go undefeated. They play El Dorado this week, who is 6-2 and 2-0. La Cueva, 1 loss, 6-1. That loss coming to Manzano. And La Cueva facing off against Sandia. I'll tell you what, Sandia, even though they got pretty much blown out against El Dorado last week, they were competitive. And this is one of those teams, kind of like what I was talking with Ed Nunez about, Jason. If they are in the game and they're able to control the field, it could be a tough game.
That's true if they can control it. But we were talking before the show, and I'm just super impressed with La Cueva. All the receivers, everybody's on point. Everybody's healthy, which is huge. And then I just feel like Sandia, they have Kaide Jones, and like you said, if he's healthy, he's a big asset. But other than that, their Junior Silva, their quarterback, he can sling the rock. If he can get it to his receivers, I think they should be able to hang against La Cueva.
Yeah, we saw Deontay Bernard, and we'll get Alden here on his thoughts. But Deontay Bernard last week was getting open against El Dorado, but that more or less was when El Dorado was already on top. So your thoughts, Alden, on District 2, because I know you've seen a lot of it.
Oh, yeah. One comment I want to make, too, about District 1 before I go into District 2 is that Volcano Vista, the gap between, I completely agree with what you said, Scott. Volcano and we thought Volcano and Rio Rancho were further apart before they played that game and last week, and I feel like once the result of last week happened, we seen that the gap that we may have thought that was big between Rio Rancho and Volcano Vista might be a lot smaller than people thought. But on to District 2. District 2, this game is actually, I feel like if El Dorado can shock the world and get a win in this game, this will throw a huge wrench in the playoff seedings, and it'll make things interesting at the end because of the district play factor in the state seedings.
And you know what, you bring up a great point, Alden, because El Dorado can beat Manzano. Their defense is going to be the key because, and so is Manzano's. Can Manzano's defense stop El Dorado? Every time I've seen El Dorado in person, they score a lot of points.
Oh, yeah, and Gabe Smith, isn't that the quarterback's name?
Gabe Smith, yes.
That kid has some wheels on him. He can flat out move, and with that option kind of offense that they run, he fits perfectly with it. I've seen him break a lot of long runs. So Manzano's going to have to. Manzano's defense is going to have to play disciplined and but still fast at the same time. It's going to be a hard matchup for them. I don't think they've seen an offense exactly like that this year, maybe besides Clovis with their, even though they're down there at 3-4, they have one of the more explosive big play offenses in the state.
Well, they have an explosive and balanced offense, so that's what El Dorado brings to the table. They run it and they pass it equally as well. Let's go now to District 3, and this is another fun one, but Las Cruces. If Las Cruces stays healthy, I think this team could be the team hoisting the blue trophy. No offense to the teams here up north, but they're going to be the toughest team to beat, I think, in the playoffs, just because of their experience.
Oh yeah, I mean, and they have talent galore. I mean, and they have experienced talent at that. Yeah. And I just don't see anybody else in this district really besides. I mean, Las Cruces is head and shoulders above everybody else in this district. Right. I think we can agree on that with Mayfield with a down year. I mean, Hobbs is still really a good team. But yeah, Las Cruces could definitely, I could see them holding up the blue trophy at the end of the year. With Baeza and all the other weapons that they have, and I know people,
Molina, Ball, all those guys.
Yeah, and people had questions about the offensive line when the year started, just because they were a new offensive line. But they've obviously held their own. The only game they lost, they had a lot of injury problems. I think Ball and Baeza went down in the game.
I think Molina went down in that game too, much like the championship game against Rio Rancho last year, where all three went down.
Yeah, so I mean, they need those guys. So if Las Cruces is full force, I would definitely be scared of them if I was one of the top teams in the north, in the metro area.
Let's go now to District 4, and there you see Atrisco. They beat West Mesa last week, so Atrisco on the top, and you got a feeling they're going to stay there.
Oh, yeah. Atrisco and West Mesa, I mean, they played last week, even though the score ended up being like 36-20, I believe. West Mesa was definitely in the game the whole time. Two interceptions returned for touchdowns was a huge factor in the game. They showed up, so If I was one of these higher seed teams, I wouldn't want to play Atrisco or West Mesa in the first round, even though traditionally they haven't been that great of teams. But they could definitely shock you if you go to sleep on them.
Time is rolling down here on the show. Let's go over the schedule here, and this is probably the lightest schedule. Only 2 slides this week, and you've got Highland at Atrisco, Manzano, El Dorado. That's a big one. And then on Friday, you got La Cueva, Sandia, Volcano Vista, Cibola, and then the Saturday action, rest of Friday and Saturday. As usually, we have 3 slides of schedules, but because the team's taking byes, you got a little shortened schedule here, if you will. St. Pius at Valencia, Academy, Del Norte, Albuquerque High, West Mesa on Saturday, Moriarty against Hope Christian on Saturday as well. Your thoughts on the schedule, guys?
Well, it's going to be another big week in high school football. For the slide that's up right now, Belen and Grants pops out at me, but the big one's going to be El Dorado, Sandia, or La Cueva, Sandia. Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, Eldo Manzano, I mean, yeah, is going to be the big one. And Atrisco Heritage, watch out. Highland can put up a lot of points. So if they want to stay at the top of District 4 and get that district championship, they're going to have to have their full game on against Highland.
Yeah, that's a good point. Highland much improved this season. Quickly, let's go over the volleyball coaches' polls. And you look at Sandia Prep number 1, Portales, Robertson, St. Mike's, Moriarty. Then you got District, check that, 5A. In 5A, you got, there you go, St. Pius is number 1. And in 6A, we'll look at 6A and La Cueva still on top of the mountain there. Final thoughts, guys.
Volleyball season, it's coming down. Watch out for La Cueva and Sandia.
Absolutely. Well, thanks to both of you, Jason Pohl and Aldenia Wani. And Jason Pohl and Alden Iowani tag teaming to be the producer-director here today. Thanks to Steve Davis. There you go. You got the thumbs up there. And the
Generation square off.
Thanks to Steve Davis and Ed Nunez. Until next week, I'm Scott Galetti. Enjoy the action this week, and we'll see you next week on the Sports Desk.